I would like to make a couple of points clear, and that's that you actually came up with an ordinance to supersede county, state, and federal rulings.
Correct. It was first the first draft was an ordinance, and then after I got the borough solicitor involved, we did it as a resolution because only certain the state can only pass certain laws when it comes to firearms, and I mean only certain laws. They have to be very careful with that situation.
This is starting to sweep our country, and it's starting to in little towns, and other people and other townships are asking where to get such an ordinance. Is there a specific site? I believe Oath Keepers.
Yeah, there's one on oathkeepers.org, and Josh?
Oathkeepers.org, and where else can they receive a copy of this?
Up on our blog, blog.princelaw.com, we actually have a copy of the signed ordinance that Gilberton enacted with all the council members' signatures on it. So you can go on blog.princelaw.com to get that.
Could you say
Chief,
that?
may I ask a question about that? Would a convicted felon or a mentally or emotionally unstable resident of your municipality be able to lawfully obtain and possess a firearm on the basis of that ordinance?
No, they would have to still go through the background checks. And as you're well aware, Mayor, there is, you know, to secure a handgun in Pennsylvania or anywhere in the country, we already have national background checks for that. The only thing in Pennsylvania is we don't have private-to-private sales in Pennsylvania are legal with long guns only, not handguns. And like I said before, I come across handguns. I don't come across long guns in my line of work.
Aren't you, though, nullifying by virtue of the language of your ordinance?
Any acts, orders, rules, or regulations that come down from the current sitting president, absolutely. My thought and theory on that is, you know, and I can speak for myself and I speak freely, I don't believe in what he's trying to do and his administration's trying to do. I believe our freedom's at stake, and I never thought I would see the day where I'm 41 years old, where I would have to defend my own freedom in my own country.
But existing law is enforced in your municipality. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that, Mr. Mayor?
Existing law is enforced in your municipality. Is that correct?
Existing law as for?
The existing firearms law.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Oh.
Existing law.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. Could Eric have it, and could everybody else speak up? Okay.
If I could touch a little bit on, there was a lot of talk here on the PIC system, the NIC system, and just a little bit of history about myself. I took office as sheriff. I worked for the department prior to in 2008. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, being born and raised in the rural area, Greenwich Township of our county, I wanted to make it easier for law-abiding citizens to obtain a license to carry firearm. In 2008, we issued just a little over 5,700 permits to county residents. And last year, we had our biggest year. We had over 10,000 permits issued. And again, that was going out in the community. We set up 5 remote locations. We have an airport substation. We basically make it as easy as possible for the law-abiding citizen to come in and get their permit. And I emphasize law-abiding citizen is because that's what we're seeing. The criminals are not coming to us. They're not going to a sporting goods store to get their weapons. They're buying them on the street. Out of just a little over 34,000 permits active in Berks County, last year, we revoked, meaning that someone went out and committed a crime or did something they shouldn't have done, less than 1%, actually 0.15% of our permit holders were revoked. We rejected, meaning that someone came in and made application to us and they were rejected because of the PICS or NICS check, less than 1%, actually 0.9%. And by doing what everyone's talking about as far as gun control, limiting what we can do, you're targeting the wrong people. You're targeting people who live their entire lives within our boundaries, within the laws of our country, And you're now making it harder for them, or banning certain weapons that they may want to own just to own, to exercise their right to go out and practice with, or we have a lot of collectors. And we want to make it harder for them and jump through hoops, or possibly make it even illegal. And it doesn't make any sense at all. Because right here are the numbers in Berks County, and I'm sure that we are echoing the same numbers that we're seeing throughout our Commonwealth and also throughout our country, where people are actually doing the process. And I think it is absolutely ridiculous that because of one instance, what pretty much got everyone going, that we're trying to change the laws that we have. We have to remember, we have plenty of laws on the books. It is illegal to sell a gun to a convicted felon or to someone who has a mental health issue. What's happening with it? These people need to be charged, they need to be convicted, and they need to be put away for whatever time the court gives them.
Absolutely.
In the case of a murder, it should actually be a law that the person who sold that gun should be charged with that murder as a direct result of providing that gun. And that's not what we're seeing. We're just making certain guns illegal. We're trying to have a capacity of magazines illegal, and it's not going to work. Because what's going to happen is it's just going to drive up the price of the existing guns, the existing magazines. The people on the streets are going to be making money on them because they're going to still sell them without going through checks, and we're pretty much just spinning our wheels in the mud.
Sheriff, just to clarify, I believe your proposal is that if someone knowingly sells a firearm
Correct.
to someone who's going to go out and commit
Yes,
murder.
absolutely, absolutely.
I have a question because I know that you're already subject to a lot of laws, a lot of regulations. I'm wondering, because it seems like a lot of the things that have been proposed have sort of gotten lumped together, and so I'm wondering what objection you have specifically to the universal background check, because I know in Pennsylvania we do have a smaller loophole than a lot of states where, I believe 33, don't put any limitations on private gun sales. And so if that's the national statistic, how could it hurt to have a universal background check? I'm just wondering your opinion on that.
My opinion is the numbers speak for themselves. You're going to have, again, anyone going through that are law-abiding citizens. When you have a person that knows that they're convicted of a crime or that they're not allowed to carry a gun, they're not going to go to your neighborhood sporting goods store to buy a gun. They're going to go to the criminals on the street, or they're going to have someone do a straw purchase for them. They're not going to be going in. It doesn't matter what checks you do because they're not going to pass it. Right. So they know that going into it, so they're just going to go and buy it illegally.
Well, for instance, Columbine was a mass murder that was conducted by guns that had been purchased for the shooters by people, one of whom testified that she wouldn't have purchased the guns if she was required to go through a background check because she didn't think she would have passed it. And in 2010, there was a Pentagon shooting where 2 officers were killed by a fellow from California who couldn't get a gun in California because of the universal background check, so he went to Nevada where he could get a gun himself and without any background check. And so there are a couple of instances we know of for sure. In fact, the gun show loophole story became a headline story because of Columbine. And so, I just wonder if it's, if it's fair to say universally that it's not going to do any good.
Well, again, there's 2 instances, and we're now going to change the entire way we do business and have done business as a country where if you live your law according to the laws of our land, you live your life according to the laws of our land, why should you be punished? You just brought up 2 instances where, that's just 2. Now, obviously, they're very bad. People have been hurt and killed. But again, to make a change in the way we're doing business, we have adequate laws. We have adequate background checks. We don't have the people who are buying guns for a problem or to use illegally going and filling out those papers and going to the checks to get done, fingerprinted or whatever else. They're not going to do it. They're going to go to the streets and they're going to buy them.
I'm sorry. We have 2 home viewers who have questions, but did you want to clarify something?
I am pro-police. I just don't want you guys. I want you guys to come home safe. That's all I'm trying to say. When you talk about 302s involuntary commitment. I work as a paramedic, and many times I've seen where we get to the scene where the officer says either you go on your own or we're going to commit you. So they go on their own and they commit themselves. What about those people who are habitually committing themselves on a voluntary versus the people, the 302s, I understand. But what about the people who have the issues but still can get guns? I'm asking this side of the room because they're the experts on law, I believe, so.
I'd have to answer that, Mr. Mayor, is when they involuntarily commit themselves, and I've taken several people down to be committed voluntarily and involuntarily on 302s, they are evaluated by the physician. And if the physician feels that they are a threat to society, they're going to keep them. The physician will then, in turn, 302 the patient at that point in time. Even though they voluntarily committed themselves, they will be evaluated at that point in time at the hospital, and then they will be committed by the physician.
Okay. But what about the ones who actually aren't 302'd? They voluntarily commit themselves.
The doctor can sign them in.
Right.
Involuntarily. And I can tell you, having a large practice that deals with these issues and reviewing the medical records, frequently what I see is the medical records establish that the individual voluntarily admitted themselves, and the doctor goes and involuntarily commits them. That's actually a violation of the Mental Health and Procedures Act. But that is what I am seeing frequently, and whenever there is issues like that, the doctor can petition and ask the court to even keep them longer, which is a 303. So people are being committed very frequently, and oftentimes I'm also seeing it's because of them being inebriated. They truly aren't of a mental condition that they're suicidal or that. They've imbibed too much, and as a result, they're being 302'd because they're not of proper mindset. The other thing I just wanted to say real quickly, I know we have some viewers that are looking to talk, is I wanted to quote the Arkansas State Supreme Court from 1878. The case was Wilson versus State of Arkansas. The site is 33 Arkansas 557. And what the court said is, if cowardly and dishonorable men sometimes shoot unarmed men with army pistols or guns, the evil must be prevented by the penitentiary and gallows, and not by the general deprivation of a constitutional privilege. And I believe that's very telling even today. Also, one last thing before we get to those viewers, I would ask everyone to consider why it is the case that someone can get a second DUI, likely be prohibited from owning a firearm for the rest of his or her life, and yet we do not deny that individual the ability to have a driver's license or own a vehicle. DUI is a huge killer. I won't say it's the #1 form of death, because that's not the case, but it's far more than firearm-related deaths. So maybe we need to turn and look to where the real problems lie, instead of always trying to find the scapegoat.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we hear from the home viewer? I'm sorry, could you turn that up a bit?
I'm sorry, could you turn that up a bit?
Hello? Hello, yes, please. You're on Community Consensus.
Hi, ma'am. My question is for the lady second from the left. With the nation all about controlling firearms and an assault weapon ban, and I see that she brought up Columbine incident. If I remember correctly, Columbine occurred in the middle of the last assault weapon ban. So how would another one prevent that from happening?
Okay.
It's a good question, and I can't pretend to have an answer for you, but I do know from the testimony of the people that by whatever means they were able to go into another state and purchase weapons. Not another state in that case. They were able to go to gun shows in that case and purchase weapons they probably shouldn't have been able to purchase based on what the laws were at the time that were involved in those horrible murders.
Okay.
Okay. Also, regarding the gun shows, since you've been protesting outside of them, I've been to numerous gun shows, and at all of them, the dealers were conducting background checks.
Good to know. Good to hear.
What's that? I'm sorry.
He said that he's been to many gun shows, and there are background checks.
If I can add, that's actual federal law. Anyone who has a federal firearms license must conduct background checks, and either at their licensed premise or if they're at a gun show, at the gun show. They cannot do a sale of a firearm at any location other than their licensed premise and a gun show.
Very good.
It really doesn't surprise me that applications for gun permits aren't resulting in many that are denied because of someone being